Pop, when you get into Sunrise, could you give the tower a call, please?
Yeah, I do need a number. Okay, what's the problem?
Just want to discuss something with you, that's all.
A controller gets a phone number. I can't believe it. Let's watch and see what happens.
North inbound, touch and go, the part to the west. Information, Mike.
518 Bravo Pop, unable to touch and go at this time, rain clear of the clouds, Delta.
Okay, how about a full stop to 8 Bravo Pop? Or should we go to...
Well, if it's full stop taxi back, I'm unable to that too right now, sir. My pattern's full.
Ormond Beach, Cirrus 518 Bravo Pop.
Cirrus 518 Bravo Pop, Ormond.
Yep, we're going to full stop and go to Sunrise. Request full stop.
Turn roll out eastbound for a left downwind entry.
All right, we're rolling eastbound for left down entry 35 8 Bravo Pop.
Cirrus 8 Bravo Pop, left base approved, runway 35, clear to land.
Clear to land, 8 Bravo Pop.
0404, number 235, clear, touch and go.
He just cleared the guy touch and go.
Number 3.
You want to ask him?
Tribulate a northwestbound departure.
I'm just going to stop it.
Hold short, runway 35, landing traffic.
Okay.
Hold short 35, over 482. Cirrus 518 Bravo Pop, turn right on Echo, contact ground.
518 Bravo Pop, roger. You can taxi to Sunrise via Alpha, correction, via Echo, Alpha, Charlie, crossway 27.
Echo Alpha Charlie, cross 27 8 Bravo Pop. We got to get it.
Bravo Pop, when you get into Sunrise, could you give the tower a call, please?
Yeah, I do.
All right, so what do you think? I got a phone number. So let's talk about what happened and what happened for you as a pilot.
An air traffic controller got a phone number to call.
Yeah, I got a phone number.
Is that your first ever phone number?
That was my first phone number, yeah. So it was an interesting thing. So let's go back to the beginning.
We first have to talk about my banana.
Yeah, so in cockpit resource management, there's a pilot and there's the guy doing the other stuff, and the other stuff decided to have something to eat.
Yeah, our airport trip was basically the guy in the right seat did all the communication and navigation, and the guy in the left seat flew the airplane.
Programmed the GPS.
And I decided the airport out of 105 was going to give us the most trouble.
One airport I didn't think we'd have a problem with. You decided to go.
I'm eating a banana.
So I did. But, hey, well.
Here you go.
Yeah,
you're flying and talking.
So I asked for a touch and go.
Yep.
So here's the question. Here's the thing about touch and goes in air traffic. They are the lowest priority when it comes to traffic. Now, somebody said, well, how many planes can a controller work in the pattern? Well, that's a subjective question, because one controller can work 8, another, they're maxed out at 3. It just depends. There's no answer. There's nothing in a book says you must work 6 in a pattern to be competent. It's not that at all. It's purely up to you. It's no different than when you talk about personal minimums from a flying perspective. You go, what are your personal minimums? Well, my personal minimums are no ceilings less than 4,000 feet. And then you go, well, my ceilings are, it's really up to the individual what their threshold for pain, as I call it, would be for pattern traffic. Now, I will say this. If a controller is only allowing 2 in the pattern at a time, you're probably not going to get, you're going to get some scrutiny from the facility side of things going, you can't deny services with 2 people. You should be able to at least work 2. And you should really be able to work 3. You should really be able to work 4. You get the idea.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of the setup to this whole thing. So when you hear touch and goes, you understand that those are the things, and they do.
And how many do we have in the pattern at that time?
Well, it depends, because it's fluid. There may have been more before we've got on frequency, and your stress levels when you're working a lot of pattern traffic is elevated. It can be very elevated.
Sure.
And so any next airplane is like playing Jenga. You just want to pull another one out. You want to pull another one out, and you're really tensed up, and you may not have anything going on, and then
boom, everything.
Well, you just think you've got a lot, and it isn't until somebody taps on the shoulder and says, dude, you only got 2 airplanes.
Yep.
But you're keyed up into 10 airplane mode. And so there could be an example of that. So at the moment we called, I didn't know how many airplanes. We didn't know how many.
We would try and keep an eye on ForeFlight.
Yeah, we do that. As a perfect example would be when we went into Daytona, and you could see that. But generally speaking, it tells part of the picture. It doesn't tell the whole picture. That being, all that going on, I said, so he says, no touch and go. I was like, okay, fine, no touch and go. Because that's a low priority request.
Sure.
If the pattern is full and you entertain more touch and goes, you are only going to get busier.
Yep.
But touch and goes are low priority things. So, for example, if a controller is getting inundated with touch and go traffic. The way you manage your touch and go pattern is by full stopping them or kicking them out, or don't bring more airplanes into the mix. Sure, I understand touch and goes. If you're asking, I want to do touch and goes, and there's already 6 guys in the touch and go pattern,
sure,
probably you may not get what you want in a touch and go world.
And so at this point, we had touch and go denied.
We had touch and go denied. Remain clear of the class Delta. Totally understandable. Okay, so then I come back with immediately, well, we're not going to get touch and go. I want a full stop. Now, from a pilot perspective, full stops change the narrative of your priority. So, for example, we talk about if I'm a touch and go, that's a training event, and I have leeway. I can full stop you, taxi you back, full stop you, kick you out. Do something. You're not getting touch and go, same request. But with a full stop, it changes everything because full stops are literally above the priority of a touch and go. And you, from a public airport perspective, you can't deny.
You can't, right?
You can't. No, you can't deny a full stop. Now, you could say, remain clear of the class Delta, give me 2 minutes, and I'll bring you back in. But you can't just say, no, you're not coming in for a full stop, regardless of what you do after you full stop.
And is that a regulation because
no,
you just can't come?
No.
Why is that regulation?
Because public airports are public access. And public funded. Correct. Yep. Yeah. They're providing a service, so you have to accommodate the full stop.
Absolutely.
I changed from a touch and go to a full stop. I changed my level of priority. I'm now coming in full stop. They cannot just say no. And you certainly can't say unable full stop taxi back, because once I clear the runway, it's no longer a safety issue.
Because you're not in the runway.
I'm not on the runway, nor am I in the pattern or in the airspace. What
so that's
happens?
Up to ground to be
it's
able
up to ground control, and ground control has many, many ways to mitigate the tower controller's workload.
Sure.
And that's the whole purpose for, if I'm too busy, put you on the ground, full stop taxi back, and then I can manage my level of busy by the number of airplanes I put into pattern. And if they sit at the whole short line for a few minutes, then they sit at the whole short line. But I'm managing my level rather than just all buddy bombarding me from other airports.
And so at this point, we are denied touch and go. Then we're denied to do
we
a
just
full
asked
stop.
for a full stop and we were going to full stop taxi back. Good on him for seeing right through our veil of craziness.
Sure.
But it does not matter. Yep. Full stop, regardless, is full stop. And he says, unable full stop taxi back. That's when I was like, now you're playing games with me. I'm playing games with you to a certain degree, but I still have, because I want to go into that airport, I'm accepting the fact that I could get delayed to get in there.
And get delayed to get out, too.
And I can get delayed getting out, and I accept those things. But I cannot get denied access to a public airport. And that's when I started getting a little excited. So then I said, okay, we're going to have a full stop and we're going to the FBO. Now,
this was after we were denied the touch and go and then denied the full stop.
Correct. When I said full stop and he goes unable full stop taxi back, which I didn't request, but he saw that I was, he's not a dummy.
Yeah.
I said, okay, fine. We're full stop and we're going to the FBO. And then magically we do a right 270 join and go into the pattern. Now, what I had a real problem with at this point was that there were other aircraft getting cleared for the touch and goes. Now, this goes back to the beginning of the conversation. How busy was he when we initially called? How busy is he when we finally get to the downwind and then finally to the base?
Sure, and that's subjective. Yeah,
it's subjective, but it wasn't that crazy. It may have been crazy, that controller may have been super keyed up, and it was still coming off the adrenaline of being busy. But that doesn't
And
excuse.
For context, this particular airport, we won't name the.
No, it doesn't matter. But the point being is that it does not eliminate the need for them to provide a service to the airport.
Sure.
At this, for this.
And where I was going with that is just because this airport's butted up to one of the biggest training facilities, and they get a lot of that training. It doesn't mean that.
No, it doesn't. It does. It's just any airport anywhere.
Sure.
The rules don't change. There's no magic for a specific location wherever you're at. So you go, okay, fine. So we come in and we land. No drama. We land. It was great. We taxi off.
And at that point, I just kind of want to explain, what's going through my head, because I'm just like, I've heard this. I've heard, okay, there's another airport near where we live, and we hear that a lot. But where our actual home airport, we never really hear.
Yeah, what were you thinking? What were you thinking? Because I was doing all the comms. You know, what was going through your mind at this point?
I think somewhere around downwind is when I took the comms back, and I'm just sitting here. I was very, the stress of the trip that we were doing, our airport trip was obviously overwhelming, and we were sitting there just. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't really know what to expect, and when he said that, I don't know if you saw that on the clip, but I said on the clip, hey, let's just go to the next airport. And you're like, no, we got to hit it. Absolutely not. Yeah. So I was already at that point, Bob. I was already kind of like, the air traffic and the tower were going to tell me what to do, and that was it. Like that's, you can see that, right?
Correct.
Watching the video, could you see that from me?
But so
that's not your demeanor, but I'm saying my
I will
demeanor.
tell you, I have the luxury of knowing how the game's played, and I know what is legal, what's not legal, what's allowed, what's not allowed, what behavior is correct and what behavior is not correct when it comes to air traffic in this particular situation. And I was not going to, if I say I'm full stop and we're going to get some gas, okay.
So up until we turn base, I'm sitting here thinking, you're asking me what am I thinking?
Yeah.
I'm thinking we just need to leave. We're not allowed. We're not allowed to do this.
Right.
But then when we turn base and I hear the airplane in front of us get cleared for touch and go and the airplane behind us get cleared touch and go, my confusion quickly turns to some disappointment and a slight bit of anger.
You got a lot of question marks.
Yeah.
Like, why is this happen? Why did that even happen in the first place?
Sure.
And I go back to, we don't know what was going on right beforehand. We know what was happening in the now.
Absolutely.
So at that point, hey, and there were 3 people at the Holt Shoreline. We came across threshold. There's 3 people at the Holt Shoreline. So obviously, somebody at full stop, taxi back. Somebody at full stop, taxi back. That's fine. They're not hurting anybody at Holt Shoreline.
Absolutely.
I always say, hey man, if they want to, we can put 15 guys at Holt Shoreline, but I can only get somebody in the air.
Yep.
And that's a perfect place for them to stash for me to go in that particular situation. So we cleared the runway, no drama. We get the phone call, and that was like, oh. So we're going to get the phone call. So what happened during the phone call? So I was more excited about getting the phone number because I thought, well, this is great because I can now plead my case that I did nothing wrong.
Sure.
So the tenor of the phone call was this. We don't appreciate, we told you no, that should have been the end of it. You need to go away and not keep pestering us because it was a safety issue. And we had 8 people in the pattern. And I will tell you.
Your answer was?
My answer was, no, you didn't have 8 people in the pattern and I listed everything that was going on with this pattern. Because one of the things that I can do, and one of the through experience, is listen. We were on the frequency long enough to know what was going on at that point.
Sure.
I knew exactly what was going on. I knew I had the iPad to give me the added benefit of seeing the picture. But you can hear things. You know what's going on. You see, a VFR pattern is not anything crazy. It's not, some mythical thing. It's pretty straightforward. And so I called them out. I said, no, you had this airplane, this airplane, this airplane. That is not 8. The 3 at the Holt Shoreline do not count.
Yeah, they're not in the pattern.
They're pending, but they're not actively on the runway or in the airspace. And that's and that he has the luxury of determining when those aircraft become airborne, and therefore do that whole. All he has runway, so they didn't.
So besides the debate of how many aircraft were there, what else went on?
He was arguing that I was gaming the system. Sure, I asked for a touch and go, no problem. Did I do anything wrong? So I ask here's my question to you people listening. Before I got the phone number, did I do anything wrong? When you watch the video, you hear my story. What % chance that I did anything wrong? And zero chance.
Sure.
So put yourself in your shoes. Yep. Well, what if I'm not there and you're by yourself and this happens? You do the exact same thing, but I'm not there to hold your hand. And you go in and you get a phone number. What % chance do you think you did something wrong now?
90%.
90% chance you think you did something wrong.
Absolutely.
It's up to,
it's the same thing as if you get pulled over. If you get pulled over and you say, well, I think I was doing something wrong, I got pulled over, until the cop says, you weren't actually doing anything wrong. I just wanted to say have a great day.
Well,
right? I mean,
okay.
You think that you're doing something wrong with some type of authority, which that's the problem, and that's kind of what we're talking about, is that ATC is not necessarily authority over USPIC, right? That's the
No, I will say this. Everybody has to know what they are allowed to do and how controllers think when it comes to pattern class delta stuff.
okay.
So we did nothing wrong. And it was said on a phone call. Did I do anything? No. Then why are we having this conversation? Well, I don't appreciate you calling me up 3 times and tearing up my frequency. It's a safety issue, which is a lie. But it was to try to basically, I don't want to work.
It's a public airport.
It's a public airport. You can't deny a full stop. You can't. You can't deny a full stop. You can delay a full stop, but you got to bring them in at some point if they continue to want to come in.
Absolutely.
That's the gig. That's the rules. Unfortunately, that's the game we play. So from somebody who doesn't have the insight like I'm fortunate enough to have, what is that? What takeaway do you have from if you're listening to it and you're just a regular private pilot?
Yep.
What do you sit there and take the phone call and go, I'm sorry, and just get off the phone? Yeah, I think everybody I've talked to said that's what they would do.
100%.
I don't appreciate the fact that I even got a phone number and I was being bullied into saying that I should not even come in there.
Yep.
And to me, I know that 99.9% of pilots, even my CFI, said I probably wouldn't have done what you had done because that behavior, it was inappropriate to try to bully somebody into not coming to an airport if they want to come there and play those games. And then if, they let us come in, we landed, and then to give us a phone number to kind of reinforce the point really had a problem. So for me, I was like, hey, I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen again.
At what point did they know that you had an ATC background?
No, well, so
when you were on that phone call.
Okay, so
was it 5 seconds in or 15 seconds in, or did you let it play out for 50?
I never said I was a controller.
No, I know, but it clearly came out in the communication, right?
The issue when you're talking to another controller and you use phrases that a private pilot wouldn't use, that pretty much lets the other party know that you have some information, you have some background in this. You're a private pilot, or
what's that? What would be just one phrase? So when I get my next phone number to call,
well, I can't tell you everything. This is like rubs and barbecue sauces. No, you can't, just by the fact that you're arguing a point. Most pilots, unless they're super geeked out, don't know that 2 Cessnas can be on the runway as long as they're 3,000 feet apart.
Yeah.
That's it. If I have and that's the big joke, if you have a 10,000 foot runway, how many Cessnas can I have on the runway and be legal? 4. That's think about it. I have a 10,000 foot runway. Everybody's doing the math right now. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If you have a 4,000 foot runway, how many Cessnas can you, small single engine airplanes, twins and stuff, that changes the narratives, 4,500 feet. These are things that the controllers use to determine separation. And so if I say to another controller who's trying to talk to me on the phone, and this is an example, not actually what took, said, you only needed 3,000 feet between us. Now, how many would you have said that? You never would have said that. No, because you wouldn't have known. But by the fact that I even pulled that number out and said it to him in regards, this is not part of that conversation, but I'm just saying you asked.
Of course.
You immediately know that I know that you know that I know that what 3,000 feet means.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
There's a lot of that I know.
That's exactly right. Or here's another one. Did you know that recordings, whether it be on a phone call or on a phone like I got, or on a frequency, is stored and saved for 45 days? Now, if I said...
I learned that on this trip.
I
didn't know that, though.
For 45 days.
So the answer was no. I didn't know that it was 45.
No.
I thought it was recorded, but I thought maybe as a week or...
So back in the day when I walked uphill backwards in the snow, it was only 2 weeks because the tape was only so big, so it's 2 weeks.
They didn't even have elevators in the tower, did they?
We walked stairs.
Yeah.
But now it's 45 days. It's digital. And it's time coded and all this other stuff like that. So you go, okay. So if I said, well, you have 45 days before to listen to this particular recording, how many normal pilots would know that was 45 days? They wouldn't. Controllers know that. So I don't have to say I was a controller. They just know by the fact that I'm throwing these things out there conveys the same information. So once that conversation in reality starts to happen and I start to now push back on the fact that he didn't like the fact that I even came into the airport, and I start giving information that conveys that I know how the game's played. If you got touch and goes and you're overwhelmed and it's a safety issue, then you full stop them and taxi back. You don't keep clearing people for touch and goes. So that's not a legitimate answer.
How did the conversation go once you started letting them know that you had that background?
Well,
did it change?
Okay, so,
Did the
no,
tone
because
change?
controllers are very, we're never wrong. Is that I guess that's the best demeanor. I mean, you're showing, there was a lot of bowing up going on.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to get back down, and he was going to stand his ground. In the end, I think it was I said, you know what, you have a great day. I'll talk to you later, because there was no point in belaboring this conversation any further.
We had a good 9 hours of flying that day.
Yeah, I mean, it was just
yeah.
one of those. We're not gonna. This is a conversation for later,
Sure,
with their boss or what have you, And I didn't say, "Can I have your boss's phone number?" I had the ability to get that, and those things are available to you.
Sure.
So anyway, that's kind of how that sat. To
What's
me,
your biggest takeaway?
I said, if I didn't stand up and push back, how many other pilots were going to getting a phone number when they did absolutely nothing wrong as an acceptable behavior from that particular controller to tell these pilots, I don't want you here.
Yep.
And to me, I had to stand up against that. That was where I come back from that.
How many phone numbers have you given?
0.
You've given 0 phone numbers to call?
My entire career, I gave 0 phone numbers. Well, I gave him my cell phone number. I gave John Travolta my daughter's phone number. So he goes, "What's your daughter doing?" I said, "Yeah, she's getting ready to do her final exams. Let me call." And I said, "You should call her and say, good luck." He goes, "All right, I'll call her. What's her phone number?" So I did that, but that was the only. But no. So
You've never had to give a phone number.
Okay, so here's a veteran move for you. Let's assume, for the sake of argument, that a pilot goes through a restricted area. We notice it, or somebody notices it.
Sure.
Or what happens from that perspective? If you go through an active restricted area, we'll put a tag on there. Now, it could say violator. It can say watch this. Other facilities have specific things they'll put on there going the name of the restricted area or target of interest, TOI. They'll put it on. They can just type it in.
Put it on the airplane. And
put it on the tag and it follows the airplane. Right. Now, this is before ADSB. ADSB, we can actually pull up the call sign now and see who it is. But before that, you have no idea. It's just a mode C and a target. And so as that pilot goes down the line and starts leaving the particular airspace, you call the next controller and say, "Hey, that guy right there is a target of interest," and give them a phone number when they call, if they call you. And so you would track him. You start your own little tag. You track him through your airspace. You call the next one. And you just pay this hot potato all up the line till eventually they either land at an airport you can actually get a phone number to. If they go to an uncontrolled airport, more than likely they get away. Because there's nobody there. Yeah, right.
Back in the day, right?
Yeah.
It wouldn't work nowadays.
No, because you have your ADSB has changed everything.
Sure.
But back in the day, you wouldn't. If you go into a controlled airport like a Class Delta airspace with a control tower, you go, "Hey man, have that aircraft call that number."
Yep.
Or sometimes the pilot would go, "I want some VFR flight following," and then you would go. They call you up and go, "We're in November, blah, blah, blah."
You're a little late for flight
No,
following.
you don't say anything. It's like, yeah. And then you go, "Hey, the guy's calling me." And then you immediately initiate a different tag with his call sign on there. And then you would go, "I have a phone number advised." Pilot.
Whenever you're ready.
Whenever you're ready. Now, I hated doing it. Didn't like it. Didn't want to do it. Nobody likes it. There's not a person in doing it that loves giving out that phone number. If there is, I haven't met him yet. It's just a terrible thing. You're ruining a flight. You are.
Yep.
You're kind of stuck because
I can honestly say that our flight and our days were not ruined when we got our phone number.
No, because I knew we were nothing wrong. Yeah. But so I'm sitting there, okay, and so I would casually forget, and I would switch that pilot to the next controller and go, "Oh, I forgot to give him a phone number."
I'm so sorry.
And make him do it, and it only happened maybe I think twice I ever did it. Most of the time, this is very rare things that you give phone numbers out. I've heard about it, I've seen it, I've seen other people do it. Not a good thing. Not a good thing at all. There was one pilot I gave a phone number to. I said, and I caveated, I said, you did nothing wrong. I just wanted to talk to you about something else. So he got a phone number, but I made it very clear that he was not going to, this was not a get in trouble thing. And they're more than happy to write the phone number down for that, and then you talk to him on the phone and you say, hey, look, try not to do this or try not to do that next time. And this is why.
Was it more just like a little safety?
Yeah, I mean, they were doing, I said, well, I'll give you an example. It was a flight training aircraft and they were doing steep turns. And we all do steep turns. We do clearing turns before we do steep turns. And I don't know, I'm sure they did clearing turns and all that stuff. And they did a steep turn right around somebody else. Literally it was
circled each other.
Oh yeah, it was crazy. Well, I was surprised that they diverged.
Wow.
And it was crazy. And they were doing it right on a final. So an extended final center line, like 9 miles ILS final.
Oh, geez.
And terrible place to be doing these things.
Yeah.
So I said, I called the tower and said, hey man, give him my phone, give him the number and tell him he's not in any trouble. Trust me, he was in Class E airspace. There's no restriction there at all.
Yep.
He was VFR. He just was doing it in a really bad spot. And so we talked on the phone. I said, hey, man, do you remember that guy you did a steep turnaround? He goes, no. I said, well, and I gave him, in fact, I had the luxury of getting kind of the replay and sending it to him later. And we developed a friendship, and I'm friends with him today. He goes, dude, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. I didn't know.
Yeah.
And that's a phone number that you'll give, and you want to help somebody out. But, not our phone number, not our day, but
no one wants to get it.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, it was kind of one of those things from a pilot perspective. What do you know? What are you trying to accomplish? Did you do anything wrong? If you did anything wrong, do you expect to get berated by the tower? No, you don't. And so you have to stand your ground. I didn't do anything wrong, especially when the controller says, well, then why are we talking? And I think, that was
the biggest key that I took from it. Kind of outside looking in, I was invested in the trip that we were doing and trying to accomplish our goal. But I took the bullying aspect of that and just said, what did we actually do wrong, right?
Yeah.
And the answer was nothing. And when you tell me I've done absolutely nothing, then
it
why
helps
are
to
we
fly
talking?
with a controller, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
Yeah. I'll fly with anybody. Just give me a call. We'll go fly.
He actually will fly with
I will
anybody.
actually do that, yeah. And you'll learn some things you just didn't even know. I didn't. That was another thing is I had that luxury of knowing the system. I just have that luxury, and I'm very thankful for it. It's made my flying much easier.
If you fly with me, you'll definitely fly with anyone.
Yeah, well, that's why we do it. But that's kind of the fun part about it. Hope you guys got something from that because, I learned something too from it. But that was my role as an advocate for the people not to have that problem. And so I gladly assumed that role and hopefully, that doesn't happen in the future. But, generally speaking, they're pilots and they're pilots that are difficult to work around, and there are certainly controllers that are difficult to work around. We all have them. So we have crazy ones, but it's part of the human nature. So I hope you enjoyed that podcast, seriously. And thanks for dragging me along.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, bud.
All
See you guys.
Bye.